Back in 1950, the mathematician Alan Turing published a paper that was going to change everything. And what's wild is, it wasn't packed with crazy equations. Nope, it was built around a simple, powerful, and honestly, reality-bending idea. So today, we're going to dive deep into that very paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence. Let's get into the mind of a genius and see how he basically redefined our world.
So Turing kicks things off with the question that has, let's be real, captivated and kind of haunted us ever since. Can machines think? Seems like a pretty logical place to start, right? But here's the thing. For Turing, this question wasn't the starting point. It was the problem. And boom, here's the first incredible twist. Turing just dismisses his own opening question right off the bat. Why? Well, because words like machine and think are just way too vague. He argued that if we try to define them, we're just going to end up taking a public opinion poll. And that's not exactly science, is it? He knew he needed something way more concrete.
So instead of getting bogged down in some endless philosophical debate about what thinking even is, Turing proposed something totally new. A game, a test that you could actually play, and more importantly, one you could measure.
He called it the Imitation Game. And the purpose was dead simple. Let's stop asking the unanswerable question, can it think? And instead ask a testable one. Can it perform? Can a machine imitate a human being so well that we literally can't tell the difference? Okay, so how do you actually play this thing? Now, what's really cool about this is that Turing based it on a popular party game of his time. It's just a wonderfully clever setup. All right, so in the original party game, you've got 3 players. There's an interrogator, let's call them C, who's in a totally separate room from the other 2. A man, A, and a woman, B. C can only talk to them through typewritten notes. Now, the man's goal is to trick the interrogator into thinking he's the woman, and the woman's job is to help the interrogator guess correctly. Now here's where Turing flips the script. He asks, what happens if we put a machine in the role of player A? The game isn't man versus woman anymore. Now it's machine versus human. And the new, critical question becomes this. Will the interrogator be fooled by the machine just as often as they were fooled by the man in the first game?
And you see, this is what's so genius about it. The game completely separates the physical from the intellectual. As Turing himself put it, we do not wish to penalize the machine for its inability to shine in beauty competitions. The test is all about communication. It's pure distilled conversation. Nothing else matters.
Of course, Turing wasn't naive. He knew this idea would face some serious opposition. So, like a grand master of chess, he anticipated every possible countermove. He laid out all the objections to his idea, right there in the paper, ready to knock them down one by one.
The first big one he tackled was what he called the argument from consciousness. Citing Professor Jeffrey Jefferson, this view basically says that a machine can't really feel anything. Sure, it might be able to write a sonnet, but it wouldn't know it wrote it. It's just a simulation of emotion, not the real deal.
And then you've got what he called the arguments from various disabilities, which was really just a laundry list of all the things people insisted a machine could never do. You know, be kind, have a sense of humor, fall in love, enjoy strawberries and cream, or, get this, even make a mistake. These were all seen as these untouchable, uniquely human traits. But here's the thing. For every single argument, Turing had a rebuttal ready to go. He wasn't just defending his game. He was systematically taking apart the very foundation of his critics' beliefs. This is where the paper really gets exciting.
So for that argument from consciousness, Turing's comeback was just devastatingly logical. He said, look, this is an extreme skeptical view. The only way to know for sure that a machine thinks is to literally be the machine. But then he turns it right back on us. How do I know that you think and feel? The only way is to be you. It's an impossible standard, and it's totally unproductive to hold a machine to it if we don't even apply it to each other. And what about that claim that machines can't make mistakes? Ha! Turing's reply to this is just wonderful. He said, of course, a machine built for this game wouldn't just spit out perfect answers. If you ask it to multiply 2 huge numbers, it might pause, and then give an answer that's just a little bit off. It could be programmed to make deliberate mistakes to seem more human.
So after defending his game from all sides, Turing does something incredible. He stops looking at the present and turns his gaze straight to the future. This is where his paper goes from being a brilliant argument to a visionary blueprint. He didn't just ask if a machine could pass his test, he started laying out a roadmap for how we might build one.
And this leads us to one of the most famous predictions in the entire history of technology. You got to remember, this is 1950. Computers were these massive, room-sized beasts with less power than the calculator on your phone. And in that environment, Turing made an incredibly bold, specific, and time-bound claim.
He made this startlingly specific prediction, and it all boiled down to one single number: 70%.
So what did that 70% mean? Well, here's the full prediction. Turing believed that by the year 2000, a machine could be programmed to play the imitation game so well that after 5 minutes of questions, an average human interrogator would only have a 70% chance of guessing correctly. To put it another way, the machine would fool the judge at least 30% of the time.
He gave the world 50 years, a half-century to see if his wild thought experiment could actually become reality. I mean, what an incredible shot to call way back then.
But how in the world could we get there? Turing's answer was, and I'm not exaggerating, revolutionary. He said, instead of trying to program a full adult mind with all its complexities, why don't we try to simulate a child's mind? Create a child program with some basic rules and a lot of blank space, and then educate it. And right there in that one paragraph in 1950 is the core idea of modern AI. This concept of a machine that learns and adapts from experience. That is the very seed of what we now call machine learning. It's just absolutely mind-blowing.
You know, what Turing really taught us is that the questions we ask are just as important as the answers we find. He took a fuzzy philosophical problem and turned it into a concrete engineering one. So now, almost 75 years later, as we watch machines write their own sonnets and create unbelievable art, maybe the real challenge he left for us isn't just to build a thinking machine, but to once again find a new and better question to ask.